Hello, everybody. Today is February 8th, the day after my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom, by the way. And this is Lucky's Depression Journal number 2. Not gonna lie to you, I've been drinking just a little bit because it's my day off. I have like a 5-day weekend. Today's Thursday, so just getting in the second day of it. And I wanted to stay consistent, and I also wanted to drink in the morning, do day drinking. So, um, which is very, very interesting when you kind of think about it, because alcohol is a natural depressant. I have a natural, natural inclination to be depressed, or I have clinical depression, and why would I do this, and why when it seems like everything would be pointing in the direction of depression. And it's because I don't drink in for the wrong reasons. I didn't drink after my father's death. I didn't even smoke after my father's death. I gave myself a couple days to to kind of think about it and reflect on it, as in a normal way, to cope with it, because the problem is with a lot of these these drugs, and alcohol is a drug as well as marijuana, which I also partake in. And the thing about it is they kind of hide you from a lot of your feelings, and I think feelings are there to tell you things. It's just like your immune system. When you're feeling crappy, it's because your immune system's fighting something. Same thing with depression. I think a lot of times it comes from a lack of understanding oneself, but I think also not listening to oneself. And a good example of this is Jordan Peterson, one of my, one of the most, prolific speakers, and I want to say the last 10 years. Don't. That's just my opinion. It's not a fact or anything like that. But that's one of my beliefs. Just because he's brought so many people together, and also brought up the idea of critical thinking in even the most, what I would say, hopeless situations. And one of the things he talks about is Carl Jung's monster theory, which I'm not actually, I may have been a philosophy student. Remember, I'm a dropout. So I didn't really touch on a lot of the more current philosophers and anything like that. But one of the things I did talk, we did kind of delve into in one of my philosophy classes was the idea of the banality of evil, which banality I had to look up a little bit later, is defined as dullness. So the dullness of evil, just basically saying that, at least the way I kind of looked at it was the dullness of the word evil. We throw this word out all the time, and we talk about people being evil, this person being evil, this person being evil. We all have evil within us. That's personal belief of mine, and I say personal belief because I can't prove that. I cannot prove that, but it just seems like no matter how holy you are, no matter how moral you may seem, you've had your pitfalls. You've had to struggle with that. It doesn't mean that you can't conquer it. It's not a hopeless venture or anything by any stretch of the imagination. But it's the idea that, excuse me, that kind of that your excuse my language, but your shit doesn't stink, right? That that this person in jail, you're somehow better than just because they're in jail. Even though it might be for a real small crime, like when when people would regularly go to jail, and I'm sure they still do, for smoking pot. It seems like, now, granted, it depends on what you're talking about. If they're driving under the influence of pot and they're way too high to be driving, throw them behind bars. They were endangering lives, that kind of idea, and I may get a little flack for that, but I personally believe we have this thing called Uber now. Most of us have smartphones now, or things that can take apps. Use it. Have a good time, but be safe about it. That kind of idea. Me personally, I have a flip phone, so I always have to go with somebody that has a smartphone or iPhone or Samsung. I guess there's different ones. Um, but yeah, I try and practice that no matter what I'm doing, or but but yeah, it's kind of this idea that that person, the demonizing principle, like when we were in Vietnam. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I haven't had a huge course in history about this, but that's no no shocker that we demonize them. In every war, it seems like we demonize people and try and make them lesser than who they are. After 9/11, it seemed like anybody from the Middle East was getting basically grouped up with terrorism, and that's kind of just the fear talking, and but to act like we're no strangers, that we've never acted in terrorism, that America's never acted in terrorism, is in our history, of course we have, I mean, whether the reasons were just or not, of course, is up for debate. But it kind of makes you think, why are we judging people so harshly? One of the biggest, I love the golden rule. Treat others unto, treat others in a nutshell. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And I think that's especially true if you can kind of see the humanity in people. And I think taking away somebody's humanity is completely wrong. You know, when I was I'll get into this later. I had talked about it in the first video, but I was placed under a 5150 in June of 2011, which was the year I graduated from high school. Because there were so many things on my plate that I really couldn't. I just got my first girlfriend, never had one before. Just, things were going well for me, but inside things were just eating me up. My father at the time, was asking me. Oh, Fortnite uploaded. Was asking me, where are you going to college? And at the time I was going to a community. I was going to go to a community college. I said, I'm going to Savage City college. That's what my plan is. Maybe I'll go from there. And all of a sudden I heard him say, he's like, you need to go to a state university. Just kind of pushing more for that state university. Even though he had never, to the best of my knowledge, I believe he graduated high school, never had any college, but that could even be wrong. But it really set me off, and especially for somebody that's emotionally fragile like that. I started punching walls. I still have scars on my knuckles from doing that. It was it was a growing up period, and so I guess what this depression journal is supposed to be more about is just the idea that we're human. We make mistakes. I make mistakes. I woke up at like five in the morning, and 6 o'clock I started drinking. So we're all prone to mistakes. Prone to mistakes. Was that a great idea? Well, maybe not. But I have a 5-day weekend, so I'm going to enjoy it. And life is especially with the passing of a lot of people and animals. I'm a big animal lover. I love dogs. As you can tell by the big German Shepherd behind me that's passed out on my bed. Just their passing, it really makes you think that, wow, it's life is really too short. Especially as I get older, it seems like the years are going by faster, and I feel like I have to make a bigger push to connect with people, because that's how I learned to get out of my depression, was talking to people. Was hearing their stories and realizing that I'm not alone in the world, and that a lot of people went through this, and people that you wouldn't even expect. And so that's kind of what I hope to be for some of you people, if anybody's watching this, is to just kind of tell you that you're not alone, and that it's a lot more normal than you think. And maybe I'll tell I plan to tell you one day about some of my experience in the hospital after being placed under 5150. But It's only the second video, so have a beautiful and blessed day, guys.